This is the Norris Group's Real Estate Investor Radio Show, the award-winning show dedicated to thought leaders shaping the real estate industry and local experts revealing their insider tips to succeed in an ever-changing real estate market. Hosted by author, investor, and hard money lender, Bruce Norris.
Thank you for joining us. My name is Bruce Norris, and today I am joined by my son, Aaron Norris.
Howdy.
Aaron, how are you?
Doing pretty good. Doing pretty good. Stiff neck, but you know what? I'm here, living the dream.
Been a crazy year. I guess, honestly, I want to start with thanking our industry for the support and love they have reached out and shown to you. So that's a very high importance to me as a dad. So.
Yeah, I actually had to create the videos online because, you know, if I went too long without it, rumors would get started that I wasn't doing well, or I would get inundated by text messages and emails. And it was very sweet. Lisa Hagler from LA South Ria came to the hospital and gave me a box that all these investors wrote little notes for me, inspirational notes. It was very sweet, and it's just helped the time go by fast. There's, you know, open heart surgery was May. I had to do 6 rounds of chemo, and I don't think people understood when I did chemo, I was in the hospital for 5 days. So you're just sitting there attached to a pole for 5 days. It's pretty boring. So that is done. Giving the body a break. I did really well. It was great to hear the doctor say I did far better than they thought possible. So I'm doing pretty good.
You know, when mom went through cancer, whenever I would speak, there would always be someone come up to me kind of shy and say, this is an alternative method, you know, but I don't want you to think I'm crazy for suggesting it. And then they would say it and I would go, oh yeah, we already own the machine, you know, like a Rife machine or whatever.
Yeah. I remember all that, and I have definitely had my fair share. Somebody said you might have worms. They've got their home remedies. You just, you know, everyone's coming from a good place, and, you know, also being so public about what you're going through, you have a lot of people share what they're struggling with. And, you know, I'm very grateful for having done a lot of planning. You know, it's really scary, and significant others, if you're not doing estate planning as you go along and you're not keeping them in the loop, or just something simple like, you know, if something were to happen to me, having insurance that pays off all my mortgages, to where you have free and clear assets. I wouldn't be able to get life insurance right now, even if I wanted to. So right. Staying ahead of that and protecting your family is just really important. So I feel very fortunate and lucky, and I'm just really happy to be here. I'm looking forward to a very different 2022, tell you that much.
Can I tell you a quick little funny story?
Sure.
For the audience? So when you started your chemo, you know, it was almost overnight. Like, yeah, you talked about losing your hair, and, you know, and then all of a sudden, like, it was just like gone. Like, oh, I'm gonna shave my head, and then like, bam, like it was done, right? And so, you know, your dad was flying in to visit as he did, you know, often this year. And he walks by my office and he's got a buzzed head, you know, and he's like, hey, I said, hey, you trying to copy me? And he looks at me, and I had, without telling each other, we had both shaved our heads just in support. And he just kind of looked at me and laughed and came in the office and gave me a hug. And he was like, you know, it was just kind of like a cute surprise that we had both done it without telling each other. It was funny.
Yeah.
It was very, very sweet.
Yeah. If you're on the other side of that, I would think any support is more than welcome. You know, at the hospital, this was probably the second time Aaron was there. I'll tell this story. I had dropped him off and then come back up probably within 10 minutes. He was settled in a room. But when I passed by the nursing station, there was a buzz, and what I overheard was Aaron Norris is back. I mean, who gets that kind of reception?
You know, it's funny. One of the side effects of open heart surgery is you don't sleep, and so when the biopsy came back after they did the heart surgery and they found that the tumor inside my heart was cancerous, I wasn't sleeping. I really pushed 6 weeks after the surgery, heart surgery, was the earliest that they said they would even talk to me. I had an appointment on week 6. I was really pushing to get in. And through over Memorial Day weekend, right before I started cancer, I got in a mini car accident, caused internal bleeding, and then decided it would be a good idea to run a Theragun across my stomach. I checked into my first round of chemo so completely devastated and in such a terrible mindset. I had never been in that kind of distress before, not
Wow.
sleeping. I just felt it was terrible. So when I checked in, it was just devastation. And I was like, I need help. Like I'm a mess. After they put me on hydrocodone, got me to sleep, and I really did not like being on narcotics and sleeping pills. And I worked really hard to do other natural things. But that second round, I decided that I was going to approach it very differently. So every time I checked into the hospital for round 2 through 6, I would buy a ton of goodies, cupcakes, cookies. I just wanted to set the tone for myself and the crew and know that I was not there to mess around, that it was going to be a good time. I had a friend give me a disco ball. And so those of you who followed the story online, I had to walk. That was part of the heart recovery. Like I constantly needed to exercise, and it's not easy to do in a hotel room. So I was doing 21-minute miles, 21-minute miles in the hospital with a disco ball flying around the hospital. It was pretty funny. And by the end, you make some connections with some nurses, and it was very sweet. And I thought they did this for everybody. They threw me a going away party, and they actually gave me goodies too. They're like, well, it's not as much as you've given us, but they put streamers, and they all wrote very long, lovely notes in a card. And the next day, my cardiologist came in, and he's like, what are the streamers for? I'm like, the nurses threw me a going away party. And he's like, well, that blesses my heart. I was like, oh, that doesn't typically happen. He's like, no. So that was cool. And then of course your wife Sandy thought that was cool that I was doing that, and so she would buy pizza at least once every time I was there. So the running joke is something very similar. I would say to all of our investors who ever attend the Norris Group events, if you don't gain 5 pounds, we haven't done it right. So I would tell the nurses, hey, if you don't gain as much weight as I did while I'm here, we haven't done it right. So mindset really helped me get through because it was every 3 weeks. I did not miss a beat. I'm very grateful that I went in healthy. I think that made a big difference.
Yeah. And a shout out to Dr. Rocco, who rushed the process so you had a chance, because you were in bad shape and we didn't know it. And then a week later, under a week later, you were in open heart surgery because it was, and they pushed it up a couple of days because of the urgency of it. So it's crazy year.
Yeah, and I know a few people who had their heart checked out because they were also experiencing similar symptoms that I had. Luckily, it wasn't anything like I had, but nonetheless, just the healthcare system has been a little bit overwhelmed, and I've had some advocates that have really pushed, which has been really nice. I've also learned in the process, while telemedicine is fantastic when you're going through something like this, I've been told by one doctor, thank you for showing up. And it's smart because they get more invested in you when they see you. And you know what? A lot of these healthcare workers are just really going through it. So while COVID has become a very political, unfortunately, there's still people on the front line that have to deal with this every day. So just treating them with love and respect and kindness goes a long way. So do that.
Yeah. Well, I think that's true with how you've lived your life. And when you have an event like you've had, it comes back to you, So, you had a friend call you up who's in the physical therapy world and basically said, you and I are going to have an appointment every week.
Yeah, that's gonna make me cry. Yeah, I've known this girl since the 3rd grade, and she's got a PhD in physical therapy, and she's a yoga specialist, has written a book, and she just said, we're going to be meeting weekly. What day works best for you? And she was really a godsend. And I've had a lot of those little moments from Joey at the Norris Group, just just taken it beyond. And, these friends, I've learned a lot about, I actually learned a lot about mom, watching her process and the friends that stuck around and those that disappeared. That was one of my fears going in, is that you have people scared, they don't know what to say. And so they just, they disappear off the map. So that was one of my concerns. And apparently I've done a much better job curating friends and family over the years, because that hasn't been my experience thus far. So, and our community has really been great. More than a handful of investors consistently reaching out, and it's been fun.
Yeah, your updates kind of gave me permission to tell people, because a lot of people that don't follow you, a lot of the investors, that follow your dad, I'd get on the phone with them, or they would reach out for something. They would very politely say, can I ask you about Aaron? And I'd say, yeah, shoot, he's pretty much an open book. If you follow him on Facebook, he's 20-minute videos.
He's talking about snot falling out of his nose. Yeah.
Yeah. So it kind of gave me permission to tell people about it. And, they would ask me, how's he doing? And I said, you know what? I said, he doesn't look like a cancer patient other than his bald head. He's got to be the healthiest cancer patient you've ever seen. I said, he kind of looks like a TV villain, like a Lex Luthor or something like that. Yeah.
Well, what's funny is when you're approaching wherever room you're at, it's just always moaning or silence or somber. Then you get to your room and it's like a party. You go, what the heck?
I had some fun times in that hotel room. I'll tell the story because it's so ridiculous. I told it in one of my videos, but when I had the bleeding spleen issue, and I was in Riverside and they were thinking about taking out my spleen, and I said, absolutely not. You're going to have to transfer me to UCLA because I'm about to start cancer treatment, and anything you do now affects the trajectory of what's about to happen. So absolutely not. Yeah. I had my friend Shayna, my co-living friend who does investments in the Inland Empire area. She was in my room, and the doctor came in, and he looked seriously like he was 24. And he's like, are you poop burdened? I was like, excuse me? Poop burdened? I was like, do you mean constipated? He's like, yeah, like that's a normal term to use for somebody who's constipated. We had a good laugh about that. So I brought that to UCLA, and I told the nurses at UCLA, I'm like, you can only use that term if you use a British accent, because it's the only way you can pull it off. So I had nurses coming in like every time I was there. Are you poop burdened? So great. So
I was there when one of them came out with that, and I was in the chair going, what?
I shared symptoms that they had never heard before. So yeah, the nose hair thing was a real thing. So I think we were at dinner one time and it happened where I like spicy food. I'm not supposed to have spicy food, but come on, you guys, give me something. Where without nose hair, you can't feel it coming, and you just snot falls out of your face. And it's very embarrassing, and I think it's hilarious.
I was going to say, you don't get embarrassed.
No,
you did this stuff all your life intentionally.
Oh God, exactly. Yeah, I just laughed, and the nurse was like, nobody's ever told us that before. I'm like, well, I'll see what other symptoms I can share with you that are embarrassing and funny.
Do you think you ate more chocolate or bean and cheese burritos during
There was a competition between chocolate and bean and cheese, and I wasn't supposed to really have either. But yeah, I don't know how women have more than one kid. That whole nausea thing, that's terrible. And I got lucky. I did not experience the majority of the symptoms until later in the cycles. So I was really, really lucky. So I'm glad to be given a break, that it did well. They have me on a medication that keeps the cancer at bay and has the opportunity to shrink the tumors more. And it's the genetic testing of the tumors. It's just come so far from when mom was dealing with cancer, and it's neat to see. So we're on to the next phase. I'm doing great. I'm back at work. My stamina is a little low, but what's weird is you fight fatigue by working out more and being more active. So you just have to keep pushing. So okay. I find it very enjoyable to make my workout partners say, man, what's my excuse? You have cancer. I'm all, that's right. Put a fire under it.
I want to thank Sean at Property Radar too for working with you this year through the illness and the many months of, semi work that you were able to do, because that was not there's no way you could do anything full time for anybody. So, thank
Yeah.
you, Sean.
Yeah. And then he pulled we have the Data Driven Real Estate podcast. And the last one we did was in July, right the day before I lost my hair. So if you watch that interview with Spencer Raskoff, the former CEO of Zillow, he pulled that one out of his hat. And that was a little bit of a dream come true. That was a lot of fun. But yeah, Sean has been great. And the team, Susan over there, they've been very caring, and I'm just very appreciative. I've just felt very supportive and had the time to do what I needed to do. 6 months goes by so fast when you're dealing with all this. So
Absolutely. Well, let's talk about next year and your different hats that you'll be wearing, if you don't mind.
sure. Right now I'm back part-time at Property Radar. I'm doing a lot of writing. So just finishing up 2022 trends for mortgage professionals and real estate investors, more based on strategies. One of the questions I constantly get, because I'm looking at the data all the time, is foreclosures. And, the media loves to write dramatic headlines. And I think you can't go a week without seeing a video or a news article like a bubble, foreclosure crisis. And I think investors, our industry is going to be waiting for a long time. I think there's several things, and you've talked about this quite a bit. We don't have any liar loans. You have to do more than breathe to get a loan. And that's been the case, ever since the downturn. And we've got the ability to repay rules. Builders have really changed their approach to building, where they're doing build to suit. So we don't have a glut of inventory. The way they build might have to change this year because of supply chain and wage disruption. They can't go into contract with buyers that can't handle a price increase along the way, because that's happening, unfortunately. So it'll be interesting to see their approach. But as of yet, they're nowhere even close to meeting the building volume that they were at before. We've also got the national playbook. The federal government, if they can create programs to keep people in their homes when prices fall by over 50% in some areas, what happens with a softer landing? Nobody's really all that interested in seeing a huge wave of foreclosures at this moment in history, especially if it's, pandemic related. And then now you've got the state stepping in. So, Dad, I think I sent you that article where California just launched $1 billion mortgage release program to where homeowners can get up to $80,000 from the state of California. So the state is rolling out their own versions of help. So
how is that funded? Is that a second trust deed, or is that just a gift?
I think that's just a gift. It got approved by the federal government this week. So I don't know the logistics. I haven't looked into that, but that's on top of all the money that they've been throwing at tenants and landlords as well. So They were willing to pay back rent all the way back from, the start of March when the pandemic started. So, they've been throwing so much money at this stuff. It's just, I'm just not seeing it.
There's no way. And also, wasn't there a change in the foreclosure, the trustee sale rules? If I'm a winning bidder to trustee sale, there's a time period of 45 days that the state can come in and say, we'd like that.
Yeah, well, not just the state, nonprofits, another homeowner can come in and has 15. I think they have 15 days to raise their hand, and it's been a while since I looked at that. What is that? SB 1079? Yeah,
I think.
Anyway, the foreclosure rules have changed in California, where you can have another buyer, even if you're the winning bidder at auction, take it from you for the same price or $1.
Yeah, see, the number of trustee sales is significant when they reach the REO status, because then they affect the comps. And we've done those studies where if it's a certain percentage, it's really not a big deal. And if it gets crazy. So the odds of it getting crazy this time and actually getting back to the lender who becomes listing it as an REO, I don't see it. And the builder too was a participant in a sense, because at a peak market, you're usually building 150 to 160,000 homes exactly in the wrong year. And we're building 60,000 and have for the last 10 years, basically. So what happens when you buy a tract home in 2006 or 7, and then the builder auctions off the stuff he can't sell all over the state, and it goes for 25% discount. Well, what's the odds of you making a loan payment when you didn't have a down payment and you didn't tell the truth when you got your loan, and you could stay there for free for 2 or 3 years? So that's not going to happen this time. But here's what's significant, Aaron, because percentages are ridiculous to use, because if you had, 20 foreclosures and it went up to 40, you could legitimately say it's 100% increase, and that's your headline. And then you look at what percentage of the market it is, and it's okay. It would have to go up thousands of percent for you to go, oh wow, that's significant. So
Yep, I was going to tell you that don't buy the articles that are going to come out, because the foreclosures that should have happened, early pandemic, are just finally making their way through all the moratorium stuff. So you're finally getting people being able to foreclose that probably should have not pandemic related. So you're always
going to say, I'm sorry, let me interject. Those foreclosures, by the way, that were delayed just had experienced what kind of a price increase in that 18 months? 35%?
Correct, at least.
That's not going to revert to the lender. It'll get bought by a cash buyer, and that's the end of the story.
Yeah, it's not a foreclosure. It's a short sale. It might be a for sale. You might not want to sell, but it's neither of those things. So that's what's interesting. Even if you were a buyer early on this year and you, for some reason, death, disease, divorce, all that, ended up in a situation, you've got equity. I mean, writing the Mortgage Professional article on strategies for 2022, I mean, just in 1 year, you're looking at probably a fair amount of people, if you're a mortgage lender or originator, being able to go back to your customers and go, you can probably get rid of your PMI.
That's right.
Prices have gone. So it doesn't mean it has to be a slow year for an entire industry. It's crazy.
Cal Poly, going back to by the end of the year 2019, Cal Poly does a couple of interesting things. One of them, they have about 1,000 properties that they appraise every 6 months.
Mm-hmm.
So they have a block of properties in all the Southern and Northern California counties. And at the end of 2019, about 20% of their inventory was showing a negative price year over year. So we were slowed. We were slowing. All those things were occurring, and then the pandemic. And that's an amazing result of a pandemic, is that you have like the biggest price explosion, typical of our past. So it was expected at let's say in 2017, 18, those are supposed to be pretty explosive years, and they weren't. And then 2019 actually started becoming almost a flat year.
Mm-hmm.
You don't usually recover from that. You head in another direction because you have momentum. Well, boy, the pandemic kicked off every type of asset going up, and homes of all prices, even boats. So that's a really interesting study, is what the heck happened. How people reacted to that pandemic was not conservative in a sense of, okay, I'm going to hunker down and not spend anything. They became aggressive about solving a life situation that maybe was overdue.
I'm really interested to watch what this has caused is a more conversation around affordable housing and homelessness. So I think they just redid the count, and homelessness is up again in LA County. It's prices have increased so much, and so have rents. I mean, in here and Florida, I have been shocked at what has transpired in just 1 year, in both states for my rentals. It's crazy. I don't know how people are affording to live in either state with those kind of price increases. I'm almost hoping all my tenants leave that have been with me for just 1 year, because in some cases it means a $300 to $400 difference in rent.
Well, in Leesburg, I had a tenant that had been there for a few years, and I hadn't changed rent. So the original rent that I had was $13.25.
Yep.
And so yesterday it rented for $19.95.
I just had one come up too, so I'm glad to hear that, Dad.
Yeah. Well, I think that was the 3-bedroom. I think you have a 4-bedroom. So it's probably more. I didn't go crazy on the aggressiveness because I kind of looked it up myself as if I was a renter, what was available in Leesburg. And then I text Jeremy, I said, what I'm looking at, there's nothing that's comparable for under $2,000. Do I have that right? And he said, yep. Like, wow.
Yeah, I have a rental in San Jacinto that was built in 2005, and it's been one of my favorite rentals. It was a wholesale deal that I picked up in 2014 from an investor that did a lot of off-market marketing. Really interesting story, but I've had really good luck with tenants, and this one had stayed there for 5 years, and I've slowly handed over as I've gotten busier property management duties because I can't do everything. And I didn't raise rent for this family for 5 years because they were just so good. I didn't have to, they never bothered me about anything. Well, they moved out and they were paying 14, 15. That was going rate 5 years ago. It rented in under a week for I think it was $23.95. This house didn't get any newer. I mean, I put 15 grand into it and needed a little bit of love. The area didn't get any better. It's still San Jacinto. I'm like, holy cow.
Yeah.
I was a grand off.
Well,
Whoa.
what's cool about also the price increase? What did you buy it for? What is it worth now? I'm just curious.
Oh gosh, I think I bought that for the mid 150s and now it's easily doubled. I try not to look at that. Equity doesn't seem very real these days. I'm like, yeah, it's nice that it's there, but I'm there for the cash flow.
Well,
But yeah, it's at least probably 350 at this point.
yeah. What reason I asked the question is that was one of the cool things that the Cal Poly Pomona report also provided was they had a contractor bid the same house as if he was going to build it for a decade. And it was really an eye opener to see the progression of every bid. The plumber went from this to this, the electrician this to this, and then there was another chart showing the labor increases. And so in the newsletter that we just had, so everybody's wage doubled or more in the 70 to 80 run, and their buying power went down from $330 to 280 something. So, and we could see that being real, right? You fill your gas tank in California, it's $5, and you rent your house for $2,200 instead of 14. Well, where did your raise go, man? It's gone.
Yeah, it is insane. And Florida's just the same.
Yeah.
I've been really surprised at the price increases. One of the houses I sold in California, I've been really sort of rethinking my portfolio. I'm so tired of condos, but I got into some of these condos for under 100 grand during the downturn. So, but there was one particular one in Corona that was unwarrantable. And I was afraid that if the lending got tighter, that they wouldn't lend on this thing. So I decided to sell it and turn that into another single family in Florida where we're building.
Right.
So I sold 250, this condo that I bought for under 100 grand.
Yeah, like 65.
Right. Back in 2012, it was crazy. And it was rented for $1,150 and it had like a $365 HOA. Moved that to a 4.2 that just came out, rented in 2 days. And it rented for, I think it was $22.95, 22 or $23.95. I forget, but no HOA. And I purchased it for all in with the lot and the construction. I think it was around $290 or something like that. And over in less than a year, it's appraising now for around the $350 mark. So Florida is having the same kind of journey, but I really like owning new houses. So thank you for that concept because it is way better than the dogs that I've started with. But
well, where that was evident to me is over the years, my whole life during flipping was buying Moreno Valley houses and fourplexes that were at the bottom, 25 to 30 grand for the single family. I wouldn't pay 31 for it. Oh no, can't do that. And then, then we'd flip them, but then those things would go up to 350. And I remember one time we were going to do a boot camp and I thought, well, I'll do what I usually did. I put in 200 grand and less. This is probably 2005 in Moreno Valley, 200,000 and less, no inventory. And I'm just going, are you kidding me? 300 grand or less. There were two houses and they were like 2-bedroom, 800 square feet on a main road. and you just shake your head. So I thought, well, maybe the area has changed. So I drove out there expecting it all to be spruced up. Nope, same stuff. Cars on the lawn, nothing changed except
Yeah.
for a zero at the end. And I just thought, wow, that is California, you know. What's interesting about Florida is that it doesn't generally, it had the crazy boom because of investors showed up in 2004, 5, and 6, but typically a big price increase is not part of their chart. And it is again this time. So, you know, you and I had talked about it. I'm excited about doing a report that'll be a combination one to where we do California, but we'll also make an attempt to see Florida because first of all, I want to figure it out myself because what you're talking about, the price increases when we're flipping houses, you know, we think we're going to get one price. And by the time you're done building it, you're getting $100,000 more. And sometimes it depends on the lot location. It could be $200,000 or $300,000 more. It's crazy, like the Cape Coral stuff.
Well,
The rents too. Just one other thing, you know, one of the rents had a pool. Okay, that's not typical of a rental, but it went for $38.50.
That's nuts.
It's a 2,100 square foot house. It's just, and it's a doctor that's local, and he just loves it. So just going, oh wow, that's amazing.
All right, that's going to do it for this episode of the Norris Group Real Estate Radio Show and Podcast. Please join us next week for part 2 of our interview with Aaron Norris of Property Radar / the Norris Group.
For more information on hard money loans and upcoming events with the Norris Group, check out thenorrisgroup.com. For information on passive investing with trust deeds, visit tngtrustdeeds.com.
The Norris Group originates and services loans in California and Florida under California DRE License 012-19911, Florida Mortgage Lender License 1577, and NMLS License 1623669. For more information on hard money lending, go to thenorrisgroup.com and click the Hard Money tab.